Previously on Unpacked.
Next thing he says, I must take off my clothes. I took off my shorts, I took off my underwear, and he just did whatever he wanted to do. If you scream or do anything, then I'll cut you with this razor. It was just for the whole night. You're not gonna leave until you actually start loving me.
Nompumelelo Nhlayisi was raped after a night out with her sister and her sister's friend. Both watched on as she was attacked. This is part 2 of her story. Let's unpack.
So did he use the words loving you, or did he say something else on top of that?
He kept saying that you won't leave until you start loving me. He kept saying that. And like, Uti, angeke uzohamba until ungithanda. You will learn to love me. And the thing is, when he was on top of me, he just kept kissing, like he just wanted me to make love to him, in other words, you know. And it was the worst thing when you're thinking this person wants to kiss you, you don't want to. He had this razor in his arm at the time he's doing all of that. I couldn't kiss him, but I had to do it. And at some point, he said to me, you won't leave until you actually climax. That's what he said to me. I had to do that.
Did he say it KwaZulu?
Yeah.
And what did he say?
He said, "Angike melu kame to show that you like what I'm doing." Because he wanted me to say I like what he's doing. He's asking me if he's doing it properly. Yenza kahle, are you enjoying? And obviously when you keep quiet, he threatens, like he was just threatening me. So in the morning, I'm thinking, you know what, nobody's coming to save me. Nobody knows where I am. And I'm sure where my sister is, she probably didn't call my mom because, you know, she just wants to find out where I am first. That's what I thought. So I'm thinking nobody's coming to save me, and I just need to make a plan to get out of here. In the morning, I just thought, you know what, let me tell him I'm sick. And if I don't get medication, I get sick. And I told him, you know what, you don't want me to die here. So you need to make a plan. Either I drink water or you get me pain medication. I needed the pain medication. I was in pain from jumping all of those walls. I was in pain from him being on top of me the whole night. He went out to get water. So at that moment, I didn't know, should I run, should I not run? I just got an opportunity to run. So when he opened the door, I could see this is a corner house, and it looks like there's a school opposite that house. So I just decided, you know what, I'm not even gonna take my clothes. I ran out, I went back out that window, jumped that wall into the house. And there was this guy who was standing there. I asked him to help me, and he just looked at me like I was crazy.
Because you were basically
I was naked. He just looked at me like I was just crazy. So, and I could see he wasn't willing to help me. I wasn't going to stand here and beg him. I just ran. I went out that house and started running. And I realized that the same street, this was the street that I was running on like last night. So instead of taking that direction, I decided to run straight. I ran until I could find a house where it was open. There was a lady, I just went in. There was a lady there, and she had a child with her. And now she's probably thinking I'm also crazy because I'm naked. So I tried, I couldn't even talk because, you know, you're shivering from the inside out. It was so hot that morning, But I was really, really cold. I was really cold.
How did the woman respond when you ran into their house?
She was shocked. Like, she was shocked more than anything. And, she tried to... she just gave me a blanket quickly to cover me because she had a child there. So she was very scared. And, she can see that I'm very scared. I'm shivering. I can't even say anything to her. I just started crying because she was there. So I just started crying. And, she sat me down. She gave me clothes to wear, like warm clothes to wear because I was very, very cold. So now she didn't even have time to sit and listen to the whole story because she was going to work. So she left me with some lady, like in the main house. I went in there. That lady made me tea. I couldn't even drink the tea. I couldn't even talk. Like, I couldn't believe I just escaped from something like that. I was scared. I think they gave me a couple of minutes, to just start talking. I was quiet. I didn't even realize that the lady was there. She just kept asking me questions, but, my mind was just not there. I was just happy. Not happy, but I was just relieved that I managed to escape. And, when you're thinking this guy's going to come after you, because now I was thinking there was that other guy in that next house who saw me run. And at that time, I'm thinking maybe it's his friend. He could tell him where I ran off to. I was just scared that he's going to come after me. When I got to the house, now I managed to start talking to this lady, and I just asked if I can call my sister.
So what was it that she was asking you?
She asked me what happened. And I explained what happened to her. I think she couldn't also utter words because, when a person comes to you like that, you just don't know how to approach them, what to say to them. So at that moment, she couldn't even ask a lot of questions. She just asked me if I want to call someone, what can she do? Should she call the cops? I also didn't know what to do at the time. I didn't want to call any cops because now it's going to end up involving my mom, my family. I was just scared at the time. I couldn't think straight.
Why were you afraid of your mom or family being involved?
For one, I didn't ask for consent from my mom to leave the house. I just thought maybe because I went to my sister, she wouldn't have a problem. I was just scared that how it might make her feel that, something like this transpired. And at that time, I was just scared of involving my mom, my grandmother, I managed to call my sister. They come by. They also didn't go to the cops or anything. They came by.
As in, because the last you saw your sister, her and her friend were lying on the ground.
Yes,
you told them,
that's the
look
last
at my
time
face.
I saw them.
And then, so when you called them, they managed to come through from where they were. Yeah.
They came through, and when they got there, the lady, they just couldn't say anything. My sister is only 2 years older than me. She also doesn't know how to approach the situation. It was a matter of them talking to that lady about what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. Because at that point, I couldn't even say anything. I was just quiet, and my mind was back there. So now the lady managed to say, you know what, the best advice is for you to go to hospital and go get checked for whatever. I know it's painful for you, but that's the best thing you can do for yourself right now. From there, it wasn't a distance to go to the hospital. Because now I realized that I was still in the same neighborhood where I ran away from those other guys and to this guy, and it's still the same neighborhood. I We left the house and...
On foot?
Yes. It's a walking distance, but I was shaking because I'm thinking, what if this guy is looking for me? What if there were so many what ifs and you keep making up scenarios in your mind that this guy could be behind me, he could be anywhere. From there, I couldn't just walk slow, anything. I wanted to run to the hospital. We get there and we state our case and okay, they took me to a doctor. So now I'm in a room full of girls that were raped the same night.
Wow.
They're busy talking about like what happened. They had their mothers, they had, just a support structure, and I was just alone in there. So they keep telling these stories and you just keep reliving the whole thing that happened to you at that moment because, you're just thinking, what is going to happen to me after this? Like, what just happened to me? Why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? At that point, I was just scared more than anything. I was scared, and to go to a doctor, that it's a male doctor. So now it's uncomfortable because it's a male doctor. Well, he did try to make me comfortable. He did check me. Obviously, the guy didn't... They noticed because I had like blood all over me. He checked me and he just said, just go report your case. There was there's a little place where you report your case. So from there, he sent me to that side. Now I'm just exhausted. I'm hungry. This took forever. This is like around 11. I was exhausted. I haven't slept. I haven't had any food. I now need to go write my statement. I go there and it just took me forever. I sat there forever before I could write my statement. So now you just keep crying. And the more you cry, it's difficult for you to say anything to anyone. I was uncomfortable. There's men around me. I'm uncomfortable. There's men around me. And I just didn't feel safe, even around those men. They asked me to write my statement. And given the time frame, I couldn't give any time frame of what happened. I was just confused. I was crying. I think by the time I finished writing my statement, the whole paper was wet because of me crying. And I think that was the worst thing, to write my own statement after that thing had happened. I just couldn't do it. I kept thinking of everyone around me. What is everyone going to say about me? I just felt dirty at that point. I was dirty. I hadn't bathed, so I could smell him. Like, I could still smell. I could literally smell him. I could see his face. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. I can still smell him on my body. And I think that was the one thing that I couldn't deal with. I could smell him. Now, I wrote my statement, so they had to rewrite my statement again because of the paper was wet. And from there, they said we must go because I had an idea where I was. And
so as in to go back
yes.
to where he was basically holding you captive.
We go there. There was another girl that was raped at the time. So she also stated a case and all of that. So we had to go start by where she was raped.
As in, you're going in one police vehicle and they start, wow.
Yes.
And at the time, where's your sister and her friend?
My sister and the friend are also in the car.
Okay.
Yes. We start with the other girl first, and then we moved to where I was.
And with the other girl, were you there for long, and did they find...
No, they didn't find anything. She was just showing them where it happened, but it happened like in a passage or something. Yes. So now we go to this guy's house. I was
And
just
you could
scared.
remember.
I could remember everything. I saw everything. Like when I was running away, I saw everything. Like I could see, I had an idea of everything because I was in the same neighborhood at night. So I could tell where I was. And now we go to this guy's house. When we got there, I noticed the school that I saw the time I was in the room. I could see this is the very corner house. I wasn't sure how it is outside because I didn't see it, but I could tell like from the surroundings. We get there were guys who were standing at the corner. And this guy is like, the police guy, a detective, asked one of the guys, do you know if there's a guy that lives here? And one of the guys was his brother. But the first thing that he said, wenzeni manje ulaki? And it occurred to me that this guy is used to doing this. He's used to abusing girls, and I was just scared. What if he's there? What's gonna happen when I face him? We went into his room, and I could see myself there. It was like I could see the whole picture of what happened, how I was lying there, and everything. I could see everything, and I was just scared. I didn't want to go to the room. I didn't want to go back there. I just didn't want to experience the whole thing again. I was experiencing the whole thing. I felt like it's happening again. I went into the room. They asked me to get my clothes. I couldn't even get my clothes. I thought, if I open the wardrobe, he's going to come out of the wardrobe. Maybe he's hiding in there. I don't know. I opened the wardrobe. I couldn't even take my clothes. I was just scared to take my clothes.
But you saw your clothes then?
I did. I saw there was my brother. There was my top. I couldn't see the other stuff because I left everything in there. I couldn't search for my stuff because I didn't want to touch anything of his.
I'm very surprised that the police made you get your own clothes, considering that it could have been collected for evidence.
He didn't even want to touch anything. He didn't want to touch
Maybe
anything.
they didn't want to contaminate the scene. I don't know for sure, because your clothes would have your DNA on it anyways.
Yes. So he asked me to get my clothes, and I just got my T-shirt, what I could see. I didn't search for my shoes, my jacket, I didn't search for anything else. I just got whatever I could see then. I took those and we left. He asked me if that was everything. Excuse me.
Okay.
He asked me if that was everything, and I just didn't even want those clothes. I didn't want them anymore. I don't know what he did with my clothes. I just didn't want those clothes anymore. So they asked me to take them. I did anyway.
Did you tell the police officer that that wasn't everything?
He asked me if it was everything, and I said no. And you just could see that I wasn't even interested in taking all those things. I just took them and left. I left that room. I just didn't want to be there. I kept seeing his face. I can still smell, even the bedroom smells of him. So I couldn't stand the smell, and I just couldn't take those clothes anymore. We left and then went back to the hospital where they're situated. We went back there, and from there, they just went to drop us off home, like my sister's friend's house.
Why did you not choose to go home to mom?
I think I wasn't that close. At the time, I wasn't that close to my mom to go home and cry on my mom's shoulder. I just couldn't. I was more than anything embarrassed. Like I was thinking, what is my sister thinking of me? What is the friend thinking of me? What do people think of me? Like thinking of me, it's not easy to go home and tell your mom that something like that just happened to you. My sister didn't have the courage to do it as well. So how am I going to do it if my sister can't? We went back to the first place, and there was her sister there. You know, they didn't really ask what happened. They could see I just didn't want to talk or anything, so they just left me. My sister's friend's dad, funny enough, is a police officer at the time. We still didn't say anything to him.
Wow.
I just was scared that, we'd be shouted off. Why do you go out late at night? Why do you do this? I think we're just avoiding that whole thing. And I think it was just tough for me. They didn't know what to do. They just didn't know what to do. Next thing, we back home. And I never went out, at all when I got back home.
So when you, how did you get back home from your sister's friend's place?
I don't even remember. I don't remember at all of how we got back. I don't remember anything. After those days, I just didn't remember anything that happened after until there was a time whereby I woke up and it was New Year's Day, New Year's Eve. I think it was New Year's Eve. I woke up and I just kept crying because I bathed, but this guy, I could still smell this guy. I could still smell him. I could still see him. I just couldn't get up that day. I sat there. My mom kept asking, what's wrong? What's wrong? But I couldn't tell her. And weeks later, this is in January now, weeks later, the police come back and tell me that they couldn't find the guy, so they're just closing the case. And when they got there, they found my mom. I was in the bedroom. Most of the time, I just chilled in the bedroom. I didn't want to come out of the bedroom. My sister was still there. My mom calls both my sister and I, because the detectives now, and these are the ladies. They get there, they tell them what transpired.
So they tell your mom?
They tell my mom. And this is the first time my mom is hearing this. We just kept quiet about it. My sister and I just kept quiet. We didn't say anything when we got back. And my sister and I think from that day, we couldn't even talk to each other. She just kept making me food and, trying to make me feel better. But, we couldn't even talk. We couldn't have decent conversations after that because I felt like, what is she then thinking? Is she thinking every time she sees me, is she going to think about that day? And obviously when I think about it, I think it's tormenting her as well. It's tormenting me. I think about it every day. I bath and I think I'm still dirty. This guy is still a part of me. I felt like he was a part of me now because every day I wake up and I think about him. Most days I spent them sleeping because I didn't want to think about this guy. I chose to sleep all the time. And there's a time where, excuse me.
It's okay. I know this is exceptionally difficult for you.
There was a day where I woke up and I was thinking, what can I actually do that, to make this guy feel the pain that I'm feeling? I don't know what to do because now I feel like my life's over because, you don't think, you're thinking, how are people going to perceive you? How are people going to accept you? And a lot of people don't know this, but it's something that's within you that, I don't belong in the society right now because of this thing happened to me, and how do I approach it? And now my mom is hearing this. My grandmother is also hearing this for the first time. And my grandmother was, she was the kind of person that you can run to, but at that time, I just didn't want to break her heart. I didn't know what to say to her at that time, so I didn't say anything. When she heard of this, she just kept quiet. The worst part was when these ladies are now asking Benyapi.
This is the police officers?
Yes.
Wow.
They ask Benyapi. I just kept quiet and didn't say anything. Because I'm thinking, how can you ask me Benyapi? Does that mean I deserve it because I didn't ask for consent from my mom? Why? How can you say that to someone? And I asked myself, do they have daughters? I mean, when something like this happens to you, you become a person with ill thoughts. I had ill thoughts. I was thinking, you know what, maybe this should happen to you. At the time they're sitting there, maybe this should happen to you so that you understand that it's not where you are, it's not what you're dressed, it's just not a thing where it attacks teenagers only. It can happen to anyone. I don't have to go to a party to get raped. I don't have to go anywhere. Why would you say such a thing? Uthi benyapi? I just kept quiet. And they just came to tell me that, they're closing the whole case because they can't find him.
And this was after how long of them looking?
This was in January. This happened in December. I think it was the 12th of December. They came around January, before the schools even opened.
So basically, for 2 weeks, you don't know how many times they went back. They know where he lives.
I don't.
But they've decided that...
They just decided that they're going to close the case.
Wow.
What's difficult was my mom never said anything about it. After that day, we just kept quiet about it. Nobody spoke of it. Nobody, tried to help me in some sort of way. And I don't think it's because they didn't want to. They just didn't know how to approach this situation. I also didn't know how to approach the whole situation. And at some point, then I did, in fact, try to commit suicide. My mom didn't know that it was because of that. And she was sleeping at the time. My grandmother's the one that hurt me because I was vomiting. And I took medication and drank it. I didn't care what it was. I just drank whatever I could find. And my grandmother is one person who always wakes up at night and, go drink water or whatever she does. So she's the one that hurt me. I was in the bathroom vomiting and, she called the ambulance at the time. In fact, she set me down. She made me food, like porridge, and she didn't ask anything. She could tell that I was troubled. From that day, she could tell that, there's something wrong with her. Because whenever something happened, she just said, you should go see a therapist. Whenever something happened, it didn't matter what. Even if I was arguing with somebody, she would just say, you need to go to see a psychologist. At the time, I didn't know it was because of that. She would think of me going to a psychologist and all of that. But at the time, she can't force me to go. She couldn't. She just didn't address the issue straight and say, you know what, because of this happened, you need to go see someone.
Did you go back to school when the schools opened?
Not at the time.
And your mom didn't question?
She didn't really question it. My mom is a very quiet person. She doesn't really know how to address some things. So I wasn't even expecting her to come because I know how she is. At least my grandmother was trying, even though she wasn't talking about it. So now it's making me uncomfortable because we're living in the same house. How do I face them every day? When they look at me, do they see this thing happening to me? How do they see me? You get worried of those things, that how do they see me? Now you're uncomfortable wearing anything. You just have to hide yourself most of the time. I was in the house most of the time. I cried most of the time. I spent most of my time crying, thinking, at least they could have gone. How can they close the case like so quickly?
Yeah.
They could have went back a number of times, but they just chose not to.
And did your mom ever challenge the police about your
No.
case? She also just
No.
didn't do anything about it?
Nothing.
Yeah.
So when they said case closed, we just left it like that. It was case closed as in nobody's even talking about it.
Yeah. And I don't want, anybody watching to judge your mom or your grandmother for how they handled it, because the difficulty with rape, people think it just affects the person who was raped, but it affects their whole family. And not everybody is equipped. Even if you think you're equipped, when it actually happens, you don't know how you're going to respond. You don't know how you're going to feel. And sometimes people are afraid of triggering you, so that it's easier, maybe a discussion, let's say, was had to say, don't talk about it because it upsets her. Whereas there's a side of you that needed somebody to give you a safe space to talk about it and maybe express all these thoughts that are going through your mind. Because in essence, you were alone.
I was alone. I was just alone, and nobody tried. I didn't try. I didn't go anywhere. In fact, I just didn't want to talk about it. For a very long time, I kept telling myself that, you know what, I don't want anybody else going through the pain I'm going through, because if I tell my mom, she's going to live with the same thing that this happened. So I didn't want to inflict the pain on anyone else. I'd rather feel the pain alone and just go through it alone. I'll just take days as they come. You wake up in the morning, you just want the day to be over already. I spent most of the time sleeping. My grandmother used to make me food. I'd just sleep. If I'm not sleeping, I wake up and clean, go back to my room, and just sit there the whole day and cry. That's pretty much what I did for a very long time. I couldn't even look at my mom for a long time. I couldn't look at her face for a very long time. I couldn't look at my grandmother's face, not because I was mad at them. I wasn't angry at them at all. I just knew that they're in pain.
So you went through this whole experience. You tried to take your own life. When was the first time you ever decided to open up and tell someone?
This was like maybe 2 years later, when I decided that, you know what, I went through something and I'm going through a time whereby I feel like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't feel safe around anyone. And now I'm thinking, I got into a relationship, actually. Now...
And how in the midst, because a person might be wondering, you've been locked up in your room for such a long time, and you were most likely depressed, am I correct?
I was.
So at what point did you start to live, if I put it that way, start to live your life again, that dating even became a possibility?
I could say that, I did go out, because sometimes facing my mom and my grandmother, like looking at them every day it makes me so uncomfortable, because they know of this thing that happened to me. So I felt sometimes that, let me go see my friend. And I spent most of the time with my friend thinking, she doesn't know anything about me, so she's still treating me the same way, I think she's the one that made me feel like I was, I'm able to be me around her, because she doesn't know anything. So I didn't tell my friend at the time. I went on for a very long time, not saying anything to anyone. Even my friends, I kept quiet about it. And I'd go out, come back, go out and come back. But when I come back, I just go to the room and keep quiet. Sometimes I don't even eat the whole day. I would sit and not eat at all until the next day, midday. That's when I start feeling like I'm hungry. I used to think about this guy a lot. He used to be, I leave the house, I'm always checking behind my back. I'm very uncomfortable around people that I don't know. I'm always scared that somebody might try to do the same thing. So at some point, I was like, I get into a relationship. So I was thinking that since there are so many triggers that happen, I don't want someone finding me crying. This guy is thinking, okay, this person is crying and I don't know why. So this one time I was like, when I was crying, I just told him that, you know what, this is something that happened to me. And my intention of telling him was, I wanted him to do something about it. Because now it was eating me up. It was breaking me.
What did you want him to do about it?
I wanted him to say, I'm gonna help you find this guy. I'm gonna help you. I just wanted him to help me find that guy because I wasn't feeling safe around anyone. Even him, it was a mission for me to say, to be comfortable around him. So I told him this happened, so at least now he gets a better understanding of why I choose not to do some things, I choose what to say, and I don't put myself in a vulnerable state. So he didn't really do anything about it. I don't think he had the means to even do anything about it. I even thought that I don't know how I'd feel if I went back there. I don't know what I would do if I saw that guy again. Because now me saying that he must help me, then I want to inflict pain on this guy. I thought if this guy did try to find this guy that raped me, what would I possibly do?
And it's one thing to think something, like you might think he must die, I would kill him, until they're actually there, which is a completely different story. Share with me where you are today. I mean, did you finish school? Where are you in life?
So I went to school and I eventually went to college. And I remember there was a time, years later, there was a time I was writing an exam. And I remember my lecturer, I don't know what triggered me. I just started crying. I couldn't write. Like I was shaking. I think he looked like him. So, and you know when a person looks like someone and they even sound like that person. At that time, he doesn't sound like him, but you just feel like he sounds like him because he looks like him. So I couldn't write that day. I had to postpone my exam because he could also see that I wasn't okay. I started shaking. I couldn't hold the pen, so I didn't write that day. Nobody knew why. My mom didn't know why I didn't write. I didn't tell her that I didn't write my exam. So I had to reschedule the exam again. And at that time, that's when I decided, let me go see someone. I went to see a psychologist, which was once.
You never went again?
No.
How come?
I found it very hard to express myself. I sat there, and when you talk about it, you bringing back all these things that you feel that I smell this guy. I close my eyes and I see this guy. I'm going to a therapist, and what do I now say to her? I was concerned that she's also gonna look at me and see what happened to me, and I felt it was very embarrassing.
And that's part of the shame of rape that many victims of rape, survivors of rape express. Do you feel the same way in this situation where you and I are talking?
It took me so many years to, I think even when I told my husband at the time, like, that I didn't share all the details. Because, you find there are triggers. There's rape being thrown around social media, and obviously those are triggers. Small things could trigger you, and when you're always angry and you're thinking, sometimes you wake up and you're just not in the mood to talk to anyone. You've been thinking about this, you've been crying, and just like this whole week, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't talk to anyone, I couldn't eat. I just woke up angry because I keep thinking about this guy, what happened to him, and I find it hard to still express what had happened. And I felt, maybe I shouldn't be so ashamed of what happened to me, because I managed to escape. Some don't get the chance to actually escape. I managed to escape. I survived that ordeal. So I think it's time.
And it's not your burden to carry.
It's
not your burden to carry. You didn't do this to yourself. You didn't wish this upon yourself. And, there is that element that you mentioned, which is very unique to your situation, is that your sister watched what happened to you. Your family's watching, and there's probably things you haven't even shared with them yourself. How do you feel? But let me rather say, what would you say to someone like your mom, your sister, your grandmother that are watching now, getting a fuller picture of what happened to you?
When I think about them, like, I still cry, because I'm thinking, we still haven't addressed this issue.
You still haven't spoken about it?
We still haven't spoken about it.
You mean you and your sister, you and your mom?
My mom, my grandmother. We haven't spoken of it. I talked to my sister about everything, but we've never, ever spoken about this. I don't know how they're going to feel about it now. And I just felt that me doing this is another way of making them comfortable that, we are ready to talk now. We are ready to discuss this. I think it's time we discuss it and express how we all feel. Because we are supposed to be there for each other, but we just couldn't because we are not comfortable with each other.
And I wish we had a lot more time to talk about so many other questions that I had for you. But just in closing, I want to express to you that, it's not over. You still have an opportunity to have the conversation with your mom, with your grandmother, with your sister. I absolutely hope and pray that you're going to be able to have those one-on-one conversations with them, because the space of healing, is easier when there's more than one. Even now, you sitting and having this conversation with me, there's somebody watching that is listening to you speak that maybe has kept it a secret for so long that realizes, wow, everything she spoke about is exactly what I feel and I'm not alone. And I think that's so, so important. Your story is horrific. I am disgusted by how the SAP has handled this matter and the fact that that man is probably still out there. But I pray that you do not live in fear because of that. This for you is your vindicating moment. This is your moment of you stamping yourself as a survivor. You made it. You got out and you're alive. And I'm so exceptionally proud of you for doing that. So thank you so much for coming to talk to us, for sharing your feelings, sharing details that are so uncomfortable to talk about, and for doing it in front of everybody the way you have is just admirable. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I think With my grandmother's late now. She passed away last year. So I try have that conversation with her anytime. Like, now it's different. I don't have to look at her face and see pain. So with my mom, I'm still trying to, maybe after this, she'll be able to say, you know what, let's talk about it. Let me hear how you feel. And I hear how she feels as well. With my sister as well. My sister, I think we were just ready to discuss that whole thing and just get it out of the way. Otherwise, then I just want to tell that everyone, it's best when you talk about it and not feel embarrassed because you didn't do it to yourself. You didn't ask for it to be done to you. So don't be ashamed of it. With me, I haven't been around that neighborhood in a very long time. I've never been to that side ever since the whole thing happened. Whatever you do, just try and find closure. Because if you let it consume you, you're going to let it consume you. If at least you say, you know what, it happened to me and I have to live with it. If you have to, sometimes sit in the bedroom and be by yourself, then so do it. It's always going to affect you. There's always going to be triggers. But you just need to learn to live with it and accept that this was done to you. And just pray that it doesn't happen to someone else because, you don't know where this guy is. Is he dead? Is he in jail? What did he do after that? So those kind of things will always bother you if you haven't found closure.
No, thank you so much. I think many people will appreciate hearing those words.
Yes.
#Unpacked with Relebogile. It really is saddening that the rape statistics that we look at and hear about are actual people with actual stories. We've covered rape so many times on this show, and each and every time the story is unique and sometimes harder to hear that the victims did not get justice and the police completely failed them. But she is a survivor because she's here today and she's able to share her story and she is on her journey for healing. And that's what I wish for each and every one of you that have had to go through this horrible ordeal. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night.
Next time on Unpacked.
You fall asleep, and from your memory, what do you remember next?
I woke up in ICU. What hurt me the most is that everybody else with that night is gone. We were involved in a very bad car accident and I'm the sole survivor. Everybody that night was happy. All the boys were happy. They were smiling. They were doing what they love. That's the last thing I remember.
Thank you so much for watching Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja. Make sure you subscribe to my channel where you can get to watch more episodes. But more importantly, you can be part of our online community. Comment down below, share with us who you'd like to see on the show, what story you'd like us to discuss. We love engaging with you. Keep it coming and don't forget to subscribe.